What is going on, everybody? Welcome to the Lifestyle Nutrition Podcast. I believe this is episode 13, and we got a good one for you today. And first off, I'm Alex, and this is my best buddy, Nick Dwyer. And today we're talking about the beginner's guide to resistance training. So we wanted to today kind of go through some of the main principles when it comes to resistance training, and then just walk through how you can apply these to your own situation and start to develop a good plan that can get you moving in the right direction towards your goals here.
You're listening to the Lifestyle Nutrition Podcast. I'm your host, Nick Dwyer.
And I'm Alex Wojciechowski. We cut through the BS in the health and fitness industry and give you the strategies you need to make real progress when it comes to your health, your body, and fitting all this stuff into your lifestyle.
Nick, how are you doing today?
Good, man. Everything is definitely a little crazy right now. Just a bunch going on at home. But yeah, can't complain. Starting to get my workouts back in for the week. It's definitely a rough start, but yeah, I feel good. How about you?
Yeah, pretty good. Pretty good. I would say that. So I've been watching way too much Grey's Anatomy recently. I got into it not too long ago. I'm already on season 5. It's sad. I can crush a Netflix show with the best of them, and I've just kind of been trying to tone that back and try to get back into some more reading. I've kind of gotten away a little bit away from reading, got a little bit away from some of the different things that I would say make me feel my best, and just been in a little bit of a funk up until maybe the last few days, starting to feel a little bit more like myself, but still got to cut down on Grey's Anatomy.
Yeah, 5 seasons. Holy shit. So how many episodes are there?
Oh, there's like 20 something in some of these seasons. I don't know. I haven't been paying attention. I mean, sometimes I'll just sit there and I'll be doing like some work kind of, and I'll just have that going on, and I'm paying attention though, and so I'm not getting a lot of work done because you got to pay attention. There's all this a lot of drama going on. Like they're like surgeons. They're trying to be surgeons, and so there's a lot of, and I mean, crazy shit just happens. I mean, it's probably unrealistic for what actually happens in a hospital, but there's a lot of surgeries, a lot of crazy surgeries going on in Seattle Grace Hospital. It's a great show though.
Yeah, so there's like a lot of a lot of details you can miss.
Oh yeah, there are a lot of everybody's fucking everybody else. There are a lot of people having sex with other people. You know, it's just kind of like the hospital is just basically like an orgy a little bit. That's what I've gathered. I don't know if that's an actual thing, what goes on in regular hospitals, but in Seattle Grace Hospital at Grey's Anatomy, lot lot of lot of stuff going on there. Are you a Netflix guy?
I haven't been watching as much recently. Been watching a ton of YouTube, and then I'm starting to watch The Office again.
Oh yeah.
I've been kind of throwing that on in like the background sometimes, so I'm definitely glad I thought to throw it back on because I could watch that all the time, to be
Oh
honest.
my God.
I always go through it and then forget about it for like, I don't know, maybe 6 months, and then I'm like, all right, time to start it up again.
Oh, it's like I've seen. This is sad. I've probably seen every episode 15 times of The Office, and I still freaking die laughing every time I watch it. It's just so. It's so damn good. It's so damn funny, and obviously they could never recreate it again, just because it wouldn't fly these days. But just half the stuff they talk about is just hilarious.
I know, dude. It took me a little bit to get into it. I don't know if you're the same way. I know a lot of people have that where they're like, it kind of sucks. And I didn't think it sucked, but I was like, it's a little bit slow. But then once you, again, like everything, once you get to know the characters, it's just, it's different.
I honestly just never watched it. You know, I knew of it, and then I remember it had to have been probably like 5 or so years ago that I started watching it, and I literally, once I started watching it, I watched it like 3 or 4 straight times through. I just like would finish the last episode and I would start the first episode back on and just keep going. I can watch shows over and over again. Like I've seen New Girl. Do you know New Girl? Have you ever seen New Girl?
Dude, that's a great show. I just finished. I mean, actually, I have a little bit left. Yeah, that's a good one.
That's the best. Like that one, The Office, Parks and Rec. Those are three of the best like background shows where if you're just trying to watch something that's gonna be mindless, it's going to be just hilarious and not gonna. It's honestly, I think that I could watch some of the episodes and just constantly laugh. Just the same. I could watch the same episodes like over and over again and just constantly laugh.
Yeah. Yeah, those two, Office and New Girl, are definitely up there for me. I haven't really watched Parks and Rec. I watched a little bit, but I don't think I gave it enough to get into it.
Yeah, it's like if you like The Office, I think it's very similar. I think the same people made it that made The Office
Oh, okay.
because they have all of those like starting scenes and yeah, it's I don't know. I think Leslie Knope's just classic. But God, I've seen way too many shows, man. I'm trying to cut down my Netflix. I'm trying to cut down on my Netflix.
Yeah, I actually haven't had too much of a problem with it recently.
What's your all-time favorite show?
All time favorite show. I mean, I think The Office is up there for sure. Um, Breaking Bad was one of my favorites. Like when I watched it back then, I was like, damn, this is just it's too good. Yeah, I'd say those two are definitely up there. How about you?
That's a good choice. I don't know. I feel like there's levels to this whole thing. I would say I feel like The Office is probably the goat, and I think that so comedy wise, The Office. It's so hard for me honestly to pick between The Office and New Girl when it comes to like comedy shows, just those short comedy shows. When it comes to like the dramas or the actions, trying to think. I mean, I've ran through some pretty damn good ones in the past. Breaking Bad's a really good one. I remember um, Friday Night Lights is a stellar one. I don't know. I feel like I would have to really sit down and remember all of the shows I've seen because I've seen way too many and just so many great ones that I don't know if I could pick my favorite drama, but I think the all time one is just The Office.
Yeah, I don't know. I would have to think too of other shows. I know The Office is definitely up there for me, but for something that's not just a comedy, one of those ones that you can just like have in the background and constantly rewatch. Yeah, definitely have to think. Have you ever seen The Sopranos?
I haven't. No, I've heard really good things from a lot of people on that.
Yeah, dude, it was good. I When my mom asked me if I wanted to watch it, I was like, I mean, yeah, I guess. Like, I didn't think I was gonna like it, and then after like 3, 4 episodes, I was like, this is fucking good. And then I just blew through it. I got COVID, and then watched like the whole thing in probably like 2 weeks. I was putting in like 8 hour days.
Yeah. Just laying in bed watching Netflix. Oh yeah, dude. You can crush some I when I had COVID too, I was watching movies, I was watching full shows, just doing it all. But I like I like those like what people would call like girly shows as well, where I like Pretty Little Liars, I thought was like one of the best shows. I was a big One Tree Hill guy as well. Probably one of the only dudes that would admit that he was a big One Tree Hill guy. I've seen it a few times, to be quite honest with you. What are the Gossip Girl? I loved Gossip Girl as well. These are honestly like I've seen way too many shows. We could sit here all day and talk about TV shows, and it, it's sad. It's
Seen
sad.
them
But
all.
I honestly, if I wanted to start like a blog about fucking TV shows, that'd probably be a good one for me to do. I got Alex does shit, and then Alex reviews TV shows, and just kind of talk about my favorites. Good shit. Well, what do you think? We ready to get into this?
Yeah, yeah. What are we talking about?
So today we got the beginner's guide to resistance training. So kind of a good one building off last week where we talked about resistance training versus cardio for fat loss. Now, since I mean shit, it's episode 13, we haven't even given all of our listeners just like a guide on how they can just more information on resistance training, the principles of resistance training, and then I think just kind of going into where everybody can start, like how can you get into it, how can you set up your plan, and just ending with some of our best tips, just kind of extra tips to help out. I'd say general tips, and I kind of wrote down a handful here of some of my favorite things to help people with when it comes to being consistent with resistance training, and just different things that can help you see better progress.
Yeah, it's gonna be a good one. I was thinking about that too. I was like, why haven't we really talked that much about? I mean, we're more of a nutrition podcast, but it's definitely important. I know for both of us, like strength training, resistance training is one of the biggest parts of what we believe in and what we do.
Oh, 100%. And I love it. I absolutely love it. I just kind of gotten into a mindless. I've been like doing it consistently for just over 10 years at this point. I think you're the same way, and I think we both can just attest to the benefits of it. I did an in body. I think I might have talked about this on the podcast a little bit earlier. I did an in body, and I was surprised at how much muscle I actually had from my in body. And I think that just is a testament to 10 years of consistent resistance training. And so what I would just start out with here is if people are beginners, knowing that you're not going to just build all this muscle overnight. You do have those newbie gains, like that first 6 months can be a really great time for you to really go and have some good intensity and try to take advantage as much as possible of the benefits that you're going to see, because you can see a lot of amazing body changes in that first 6 months if you've never done resistance training before. But making sure, a caveat there is that you're fueling your body, because if you're not eating enough food throughout that, you're not going to see the results you want to either.
Yeah, I think that's like the biggest thing when you're first getting into it, because like you don't really need like a very structured program to see results with it, but you do need to be eating enough food and take care of recovery. That's one thing that I for sure had no idea about when I first started.
Oh, me either, dude. I was just doing a bunch of bullshit, just trying to dry hump the bar, see how much weight I could do. And, I know, just kind of going into our first tip, even in principle, just form is the big thing, right? Like form over everything is what I like to say. Like if you take nothing out of this podcast, I would say, if you take anything from this podcast, rather, like just one thing, I would say master form first. Really, don't try to be the guy who tries to push as much weight as possible in the gym. That's just going to lead to more injuries. It's going to lead to not what you want. You're going to be working different muscles than you even are trying to work. And so if you can really master the form, you're going to be hitting the muscles you actually want to hit, and you're going to see better results long term.
Yeah. I think we touched on that a little bit last week. And I said something about, I think it was along the lines of just make sure, or when you're first starting, look at certain exercises as something that you can just practice. Like you don't have to get right into it and just start like loading tons of weight on the bar. Like look at it as practicing the movement. And then once you feel comfortable with it and you feel like it's something that you can do without feeling super awkward, then you can start to put more weight on it.
Yeah, and I think that one thing I would add is just no need to rush it either. It's not like a race to add all this weight to the bar. I think that you'll be happy with yourself if you take your time during this time of really trying to master your form, other than trying to rush it. And like I said, trying to dry hump all of these reps, trying to just push as much weight as possible, because, it's not going to lead to anything good. You see a lot of people get hurt trying to do that. And so even if it's over the course of your first month, you're really just going slow with it. You're working on body weight stuff. You're working on, light resistance on your exercises. You're going to be setting up yourself with a very good solid base to see amazing results in the future.
When it comes to form too, I think one of the biggest things you can focus on in the beginning is all of your reps just being slow and controlled. I know for different exercises, whether it's like a power exercise or, it can vary from exercise to exercise on like how you want the tempo to be. But I think for anyone in the beginning, going slow and making sure that you're doing it properly, or is the easiest way to make sure you're doing it properly, is to just go slow and like really focus on, I would even go probably 2 to 3 seconds going each way, maybe a pause in between. That's just like a very general recommendation, but focusing on going slow is probably one of the bigger things you can do in terms of form.
100%. And that also allows you to make light weights feel heavier, which I think is a really good thing. I do that with all of my exercises, honestly. most of my exercises, I should say. I like to do very slow reps. I like to do pauses at the bottom. It's an awesome way to overload the exercise without having to get the largest weights in the gym.
Yeah, and then that's what you want. You don't want to have to throw all of that load on, especially in the beginning when your body and your joints you're still getting used to it.
Exactly. And kind of before we do go into that progressive overload aspect, because that is one of the principles of resistance training, let's touch on the warm up. I think that that's something, at least when I go to the gym, it feels like it gets neglected by most people. I feel like you see maybe a few people getting the warm up in. A lot of people go right to the rack, they go right to the weights, and they just start doing exercises, right? And I think that the big thing alongside form is a good warm up to make sure that you're reducing the chance of injury.
Yeah, absolutely. And with warm ups, I've been on like both ends of it. For example, when I was younger, just getting into it, I would pretty much come in the gym, maybe go on the treadmill for a few minutes, and then it was like, all right, right to the bench. I'm going to start my warm up sets for the bench. And then when I got into training athletes and performance training, it was like, all right, I have this 5-phase warm up. We're going to start with mobility. And then we moved through the different phases of it. And it would be like 15, 20, sometimes even 30-minute warm up, depending on what I was doing. And then now I've kind of shifted more towards the middle where it's like, I'll get on the treadmill, get moving in the beginning. And then depending on what day I'm doing is kind of what will dictate, or like what workout I'm doing is what will dictate the warm up. So if I say I'm doing like chest, shoulders, triceps, I'll stick to some movements that will open up my upper body, open up my shoulder. And then once I get to the workout, then I start doing warm up sets for those exercises. That's how I go about it. I don't know what you do.
Yeah, no, I've definitely had some different stuff throughout the years. I remember right when I started, it was kind of like I'd go into the gym and I was like, all right, let's load up the bar and start doing this thing. And I think luckily I didn't run into too many issues injury wise there. But as I've gone and kind of gotten into it, throughout college, a lot of structured warm ups that we'd have in the gym, just being a baseball player, and we'd have tons of like structured stuff we do. I had 4 different strength coaches throughout my time at college. And so that was, I think, both a blessing and just something that was not ideal at the same time. Blessing of that was that I got a lot of different variety, right? I was able to see a lot of different types of philosophies and just principles around different types of coaches, that what they thought, different types of exercises that we would do, different types of phases that we would run in each of those different philosophies of the different strength coaches, but and also different types of warm-ups, right? And like kind of throughout there was very structured, a lot longer, kind of like what you've gone through in performance, like a lot longer warm-ups, 15, 20 minutes sometimes on the warm-up side. And then, what I've kind of gone to in the past, like sometimes I would walk on the treadmill, but now recently for the last year or so, I've been huge into mobility work to start my workout. So for the last year, I've been doing full body exercises. I do three to 4 days a week, full body. And what I will do is, do some shoulder mobility. I'll do some hip mobility. I'll do some ankle mobility. I'll do some different movements where I'm not static. I'm moving throughout. I'm trying to warm up my muscles, warm up the range of motion that I'm going to be doing for all of the different types of exercises. And I found that really gets me in a good spot for the workout. I've seen the best results I've ever seen starting to do consistent mobility. Although I do not do as much as I have even like a month ago, I'm trying to get back into more consistent mobility just on the off days as well. I have gotten a lot better range of motion. It really reduces the amount of pain that I've had as well. And I've seen a lot just better results in my workouts.
Yeah, I love that. I think mobility too is mobility work is one of the best things you can do within your warm up. And the difference between that and like maybe like a static stretch is just, or something that's important to know before your workout is like if you're standing there doing a static stretch, so like for example, like a quad stretch, grabbing your ankle and pulling it up and holding that for 30 seconds, that's not necessarily something that's going to help you before your workout, it actually might hinder you because you're really stretching out that muscle and stretching it out too much where you can't contract as powerfully. So yeah, I think sticking to the mobility kind of stuff and more dynamic stretches where you're moving through ranges of motion and not just holding there. Um, I would prioritize those in the beginning.
100%. I love it. And, even just to add to it as well is, making sure, obviously, like you said, that you're warming up before you go up to weights. I think, just this being a beginner thing, I would hope that maybe we don't have to say this, but just not just throwing a bunch of weight on the bar, not just grabbing these big dumbbells, not just, putting the stack way down before you try to do your exercises, but really easing into it and making sure you get some blood flow going before you get up to those heavier weights.
Yeah, especially in like depending on how you're structuring it, and we'll go into a little bit more of the structure towards the end. But say you're doing like your squats, deadlifts, bench, like those bigger compound exercises, those are definitely ones you're going to want to have more of those warm up sets where you're working up slowly. If you're doing a bicep curl, you might just need one warm up set, or if you've done some other bicep work or things that involve your bicep, then you might not need to do a warm up set for it. But we can kind of go into more of that structure when we get towards the end. Actually, I was going to say, if we're talking about compound exercise, that's on the list. We might as well just go right through.
Oh, let's do it. Yeah. Yeah. What do you got on compound? So compound versus isolation was this principle. I think kind of understanding the difference between those.
So compound exercises are multi-joint exercises. So really ones that use more muscles. So we'll say deadlifts, squats, lunges, push-ups, pull-ups, things that involve multiple muscle groups. And then your isolation would be more of like a bicep curl, a tricep extension, shoulder raises, stuff like that. That's really just using one muscle group.
Yeah, no, 100%. I don't know if there's too much more to go into there, but it's just, I think the big thing I would say is just you're going to get a lot more bang on your buck from the compound movements. And especially if you're strapped for time, I would say prioritizing those compound movements like the squat, like the lunge, like the bench press, like the shoulder press that are going to hit a lot more muscles. You're going to, you don't necessarily, like right now I'm kind of in a phase where I'm doing full body and I'm not doing as much bicep and tricep like exercises because I'm hitting them in the pull-ups. I'm hitting them in the bench press, like these exercises where I can I'm hitting some of these smaller muscles in those exercises. And so I'm not going to waste my time necessarily that when I don't have a ton of time in the gym to do some of those isolation exercises. I'm sticking to the more compound stuff.
Yeah, I agree, man. The one thing that I would add would be structure-wise. I think it's important to just start with those compound exercises in the beginning of the workout. This way you're fresh for them. Like you don't want to do a ton of, we'll say, bicep curls and maybe lat pull downs and then go to deadlifts. It's just going to make it a lot harder because then those muscles are already fatigued. So using that energy that you have on those exercises that are going to give you more bang for your buck is definitely the way to go.
I love it. And to kind of even just add a little bit on top of that is depending on what you're prioritizing, you're going to want to put first. And so, if I'm like, I really want to grow my legs or I really want to grow my chest, that's going to determine what I put first in my exercise. Because like you said, you're going to have the most energy going into those exercises. So if I'm like, my legs are lagging and I really want to grow my legs, I'm going to put my leg exercises first in my workout because I'm not going to put them third and then I'm tired going into those exercises when that's what I want to make a priority. So whatever muscle groups are a priority, put those at the top of your workout.
Well said. Glad you said that, man.
I just had one more thing here on this, and it's just kind of on the whole structure of your workout as well. Like you said, putting those compound exercises first, putting, like I added on, putting those exercises that for the muscle groups that you're really trying to focus on first. I would also say, if you're somebody who is going to be doing like a full body workout, kind of like I do, which I do believe is a great choice for some beginners. I think it can be a great thing to just hit everything. Alternating those opposing muscle groups is what I like to do. You're alternating chest, doing like a legs, then like a chest, then a back, then shoulders. You're kind of alternating like the back exercises with the push exercises with the pull exercises, and trying to make it so that you have as much energy going into each of those exercises throughout the workout.
Yeah. So do we want to move on to progressive overload?
Let's do it.
Yes. So I think progressive overload is for sure one of the top principles up there. I would say possibly even number one. Just because if you're not putting on weight, you're not adding any more to it, you're not going to see that growth. In the beginning you will, after time you won't. But progressive overload is really just adding weight to the bar, adding more reps, adding more sets. Those are kind of like the most common ways to keep pushing it and keep adding more to it.
100%. Yeah, and really, I do agree with you. This is the number one thing, right? If you obviously, I said form over everything, right? But then when we get past that, you're not going to see the results you want without progressive overload. Like form over everything and then progressive overload on top of that, because that's going to allow you to actually see the results. And really, the big thing here is understanding there are a ton of different ways to do it. And also, like you said, you're not going to see the results you want if you don't add weight, right? It's like kind of like cardio. If you're doing the same thing over and over again, our bodies want to adapt to it. So, our bodies, if you're not adding weight or progressing those workouts in some way, then our bodies are gonna burn less and less calories because they're already used to those movements, they're used to those weights. It's easy, we're conserving energy, we're being more efficient with them. And so, kind of adding to what you said, I believe you said, adding sets, adding reps. Another great way that I talked about a little bit earlier, slower negative, slower eccentric work, slower lowering, slower pushing of your workout or of your exercises, doing pauses at the bottom. You could do certain things where I have certain exercises with either shoulder press or with bench press where I'm paused at the bottom and I do alternating. That's a great way to add some resistance. All of these, there are a million different ways that we could talk about adding resistance, but the big thing to start, to really simplify it on you is just adding more sets and reps. And then, once you kind of get into the weeds, you've gotten the form down, then we can talk about adding pauses at the bottom. Then we can talk about really, just adding some of like more complex ways to progressively overload to exercise.
Yeah. Yeah. So going back, I think form is still the first most important thing. But we'll say progressive overload is a very, very close second.
Yeah.
um, but yeah, I love what you said there. I think weight, sets, reps
Yeah.
are probably the easiest way, most simple way you should just get started with adding that progressive overload.
Yeah. We don't want to complex everything and start adding pauses when, yeah, it's great. I love doing it. That's my favorite way to progressively overload personally, because I think it's awesome, first off, like writing programs for people who don't have a lot of weights to work with, where they're like, I only got a few dumbbells and whatever. And it's like, all right, let's see how much we can progressively overload with this. I think it's awesome being able to do that, because a lot of people think, oh, I only got 30-pound weights, I'm not going to be able to do much, when there are a lot of ways to make 30-pound weights feel super heavy. The angle, like you can change the angle of what you're doing. You can change, just how many, obviously, adding reps is going to do it, just how long we pause, like, just kind of all of these different things are going to add a lot of resistance to those workouts.
Yeah, yeah. When COVID first hit and I was making programs for people at home, that was like the one thing I was like, all right, let's do. I was just thinking of like not like crazy ways where I was like making them do crazy shit, but like, how can we like make this hard with body weight or like bands? And yeah, it's pretty cool how much there is. Yeah, how much there is that can go into it. Um, and then for me too, like I think about, I've definitely gotten weaker, but I definitely have changed the way I train, where it's like I'm just trying to feel that contraction and make the weights as heavy as possible, like you said. And sometimes I feel like a bitch because my I'm using lighter weights, but then I'm like, this is the way to go. Like I'd rather make more progress with lighter weight and not put that stress on my body, and still get the strength aspect from it, and then be able to go up from there. Little side tangent there.
It's tough to not, when there's like a cute girl at the gym or something. I know you're taken, but when there's like a cute girl at the gym, it's tough not to want to put a little bit extra weight on there and like, yeah, let's see what we can do here, baby. Kind of whatever. But there's a time and a place for that. Every once in a while, I'll toss some weight around and just try to. It sometimes you just got to do it, I think. But I would make that few and far between.
Yeah, yeah. No, I feel that just in general. Like sometimes I'm like, damn, like I don't know. I feel like I'm not putting up any weight.
Every once in a while, just see. Let's do. As I'm in a phase right now where I'm doing like 3 to 5 rep range, and so I'm able to toss around a good amount of weight with them. But I'm also adding a lot of pauses and like slow negatives.
Okay. Yeah, yeah. I haven't
But
done lower reps like that in a while. So
got to toss them in, dude. But yeah, what do you think? Sets. Let's talk. We talked a little bit on this, but kind of going into another principle. Sets, reps, tempo, frequency, duration, when to work out, time in between sets. I think there's a lot of things we can go into here, but I think the big thing to start out with is, I would always say a good spot to start is like in the 8 to 12 rep range. With these exercises, really enough where you can kind of get the form down, you can work on it, and I think a lot of this stuff, these aspects of it, the sets, the reps, the tempo, is going to depend on, first off, what you're doing. Secondly, like what your level is of experience here, and third, how much time do you have to work out? Because if we have less time, then maybe we're doing some supersets, right? And if we in only a few sets for each exercise, if we have more time, maybe we're able to take some longer pauses in between, or longer rest breaks in between those sets, and we're able to really focus on doing a few more sets per exercise. Like it really depends on you. I personally, honestly, a lot of the time I do 2 sets per exercise. That doesn't include my warm-up sets, but I found that I don't necessarily need much more than that personally. If I'm trying to grow a certain muscle group, I might do 3 or 4 sets for that muscle group. But a lot of times I'm doing 2 sets per muscle group. If I'm short on time, I can get a great workout in 30 minutes doing some supersets of opposing muscle groups and feel amazing leaving the gym.
I love it. Yeah, I think those supersets of opposing muscle groups are one of the best things you can do in terms of saving time and making sure you get everything in. I know I switched to that once I started with strength and conditioning, and it's just been what I've stuck to since then. So love that. Yeah, I also think the 8 to 12 rep range when you're just getting started, I think that's kind of the sweet spot. Um, once you start to get into it more and you start to either switch to another program or something like that, then that's going to dictate. There's multiple things that will dictate where you go from there. Um, but yeah, if we're talking about just someone who's just beginning, I think sticking there for a little bit until you start to get comfortable and start to see some results, then you can either go up or down from there. Another thing I'd add too is I guess this is sort of on the same topic, which is just like staying on a program for a certain amount of time. So generally, I like to say 3 to 6 weeks of a specific phase. So like say you're trying to get stronger, you might be in a strength phase where you're in a lower rep range, or say we're in just like that beginner phase and we're staying in 8 to 12. You could probably stick there for a little bit longer since you're just beginning, maybe 6 weeks. Um, and there's really a lot that goes into it, but I would just try to keep it as simple as possible. Have that program for 3 to 6 weeks, and then from there you can look to make some adjustments, maybe swap in some exercises, or switch up tempo, stuff like that. Hopefully that made sense.
No, that does make a lot of sense, and I'm in agreement with the how long to stay in phases. I generally do about 4 weeks personally. I'm about four, so right in the middle of where you had there. Obviously, it depends on, like you said, the person. A beginner might want to be a few weeks longer, really nail down the form on those. And I'm even a huge fan of just first off, I think this depends on the person, right? Like, how much variety do you need? Are you cool with just sticking with the same exercises for a while? Because if you are, you could just alter rep ranges where it's like, okay, I'm going to go 8 to 12 reps this 4 weeks. Then I'm going to go to 15 plus reps. I'm going to go into more of like a 15 to 20 rep range type of, more of like a hypertrophy, really kind of getting it up there type of rep range. And then I'm going to go into like a 3 to 5 rep range where, like you said, I'm focused more on strength. A lot of times, what I like to do in that rep range is to add in a lot of holds, a lot of very slow negatives as well. And I find that that's a really cool way to work that low rep range as well, at least with some exercises. And then, I think just if you are somebody who likes variety, like you mentioned as well, mixing in some different exercises. Maybe you just decide every phase I'm going to go completely different on the exercises and change it up. It really depends on you, but kind of figuring out what you personally need, what you enjoy, and what is going to lead you to being the most consistent. Because I've definitely ran into people where it's like I need a lot of variety. I fucking hate doing the same shit over and over again, and we're changing stuff up pretty often. And then I've ran into people where it's like, I want as simple as possible. Like, give me the same shit, like make minor tweaks to it, and let's just keep going that way.
Yeah, yeah, I love it. I think I'd say like trying to keep, because there's those two, kind of like those two sets of people. The people that don't need the variety, I think that's great because you can keep those same exercises or maybe like a slight variation of it and be able to just get so good at that exercise and then keep switching up the tempo, sets, reps, all of that. And then that person that's more of the like, I need so much variety, you can try to keep those same exercises, again, do those slight variations. If you're really like not able to do that, then you'd be someone that might be able to might want to just like switch the sets, reps, tempo, all that um, more often, or switch the exercise more often, and then maybe not play around with the sets and reps and tempo as much, since you're getting you're getting used to that new exercise.
100%. And then just kind of touching on like when to work out and just how many days, you know, and duration. I didn't talk on duration, but duration, big thing is like what can you actually stick to, right? Like it's like I think the big part that I like to talk about here is so many people you think that you got to be in the gym for these long periods of time. Right. I know I used to think if it wasn't like 60 to 90 minutes, like it wasn't a good workout and I wasn't getting the the type of exercise that I needed in to get the results I was wanting to. And I was dead wrong there. Like nowadays I've had time, honestly, over the last year, probably working out 2 hours a week, and that's they sometime around 2 hours a week. And I was getting great results. I was more in a maintenance mode. And, I definitely haven't lost much muscle, if any, during the course of the year. But that just goes to show you, I used to be somebody who worked out 6 to 7 days a week. And I was not seeing great results and I was feeling terrible. There's these, it's very easy to think when you see all these people in the gym every time, it's like, oh, wow, this person lives in there. Like that you have to be in the gym, just live in the gym to see the results you want. And I'm here to tell you that you can get amazing workouts in by just doing even like 15-minute workouts a day. You could get amazing workouts in. That's going to add up throughout the week. Also just getting these shorter workouts in when you can. It just goes down to what you can be consistent with and when works within your schedule to work out. Because I think this is a long-winded answer. And sometimes I lose myself, Nick, when I start talking like this, where I lose myself a little bit. But the big thing I want to say is like do what you can stick to now, build on it, you know, don't try to do anybody else's plan. Don't try to like do Gerald's plan who works out twice a day. Just do what you can stick to, do what you can be consistent with, because then you're not going to fall off. Because if you're trying to work out 5 days a week and you think you have to work out 5 days a week, but you can only work out 3 days a week consistently, you're just going to be nailing down kind of taking down your confidence. You're just going to be disappointed because you think you should be doing a lot more than you actually can. And so do what you can now and build on it.
Yeah, I think that's the biggest thing too, which is why like when we were talking about all of the different like kind of like the principles, like sets, reps, all that stuff, like we didn't really have a set answer. We weren't like, all right, you have to like you should be doing this and this. It's more like, all right, this is like where we think you should possibly start, but all of like this, maybe all of the science says this, but it's like something that I've never or that we touch on a lot that I never learned before when I was in school is like not everyone can do that. Not everyone can start there. No, that's not going to be what everyone enjoys. So like again, like that consistency, being able to do it, enjoy it to a certain extent is really what you're going to hear us talk about a ton on this podcast.
100%. Awesome. And what do you think we get into just kind of the last part of here where we talk about just a little bit of where some people can start? I feel like we kind of touched on this, but just kind of getting into a few things. Like, I think to start, like we said, makes you enjoy what you're doing. If you hate the exercises you're doing, then make sure you change them, right? Like, try different things, try different forms, like try different machines, exercises, try to figure out what you enjoy doing and the types of workouts you enjoy doing, and you're going to be a lot more consistent with it. And also at the same time, like understanding that maybe at the start you're not going to enjoy it, because I know for me, a lot of the time when I'm doing new things, it's not enjoyable, right? You're not good at it yet. But if you can kind of stick with some of these things for a while, I think you'll find that you really do enjoy it. Because I know when I started weightlifting, I didn't enjoy it. I just thought I should do it because I was like, it's going to make me better at the sports I was playing. But eventually, over time, I developed a passion for it, and I love doing it now. It's a part of my lifestyle. It's just great for my mental health and just health in general.
Yeah. The thing I would add to that is, well, you kind of touched on it towards the end, is you're not always going to enjoy it. I think there are certain things that you might end up needing to put in there, or you should put in there just because it's good for you. But again, like going back to it, if it's going to derail you and make you not want to go to the gym, like you have to kind of look at it and be like, do I really need to have this in there? Yeah, that's just kind of what I'd add to that.
Absolutely. No, good shit. And kind of getting into just like deciding what you're going to do, right? Like, because certain people are home workout people, right? Are you going to be a home workout person? Are you going to be a gym person? And it's perfectly fine to mesh the two together. And understanding that there's kind of different progressions that we would recommend when it comes to that. Like, if you're a beginner, it's not a bad idea if you're a beginner at all to just start with body weight exercises, body weight squats, push-ups, lunges, some of these different types of exercises that are going to really develop a good base and just allow you to kind of get nailed down form before you start adding the weight.
Yeah, I think that's the way to go. Especially if you're someone who gets intimidated by the gym too. Like, it's great to get comfortable, get used to the exercises, and then be able to, decide like, all right, is there more that I need to, like, do I need more equipment? Can I get it at home? Do I want to go to the gym, see what that feels like, be around other people, and like have access to more equipment? There's a lot that goes into it, but yeah, I do think starting with body weight bands, body weight and bands are probably definitely up there for me, and like what I would get started with if I was starting over.
Yeah, I think that's great. And it's just so versatile. I mean, you can do it from home. You could do it when you're traveling, on vacation, whatever. You can bring a set of bands with you. It costs like $30 max on Amazon. I got some good bands. They go up to like 5 different levels of bands, and you can do so many different things with bands. Once you've kind of gotten body weight in, you can get amazing workouts in with body weight, with bands. And then, if you're somebody who wants to go to the gym, first off, you can do both those things at the gym as well. If you're just like, I need to get out of the house. I know some people, you thrive just getting out of the house and you have a lot better time getting workouts in that way. I am that way as well. I get my best workouts in at the gym, like just getting out of the house, getting into a different environment. And some other things you could do there, like a great way to start is machines, right? Once you've kind of gotten the form down with maybe some body weight, resistance bands, let's go to the machines. It's going to be a fixed range of motion. You're not going to have to worry about, stabilizing the barbell or stabilizing the dumbbells, like kind of getting those movements down with the shoulder press, with the chest press before you actually add in those more unstable weights with a barbell, with a dumbbell.
Yeah, I think that's the way to go too. Um, yeah, just getting used to it and taking out that factor of like being intimidated by it and even the chance for injury. But I do think it is important and very beneficial for most people to kind of go through that progression and get up to at least like using dumbbells. I think dumbbells are kind of like dumbbells and kettlebells are probably like the top for me in terms of like functionality and the results that you can get out of them.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's just, you got to stabilize them. So it's going to be great for core strength. It's like, it's just, it's amazing all around to be able to work up to those dumbbells. And, you can get some great ones for a pretty reasonable price online as well. Like those adjustable dumbbells, I think you can get them for 300-400 bucks. They're going to go up to like 55 pounds, and you're going to have just the ability to do really whatever you need from your house. And so if you're somebody who you're like, I like to work out at home, that could be a good option for you as well, to be able to first start off with body weight resistance bands, and then maybe you buy yourself like a bench press or a bench, a flat bench, and some adjustable dumbbells, and you probably can get that for 500 bucks and be set up for success for years and years and years and years and years. So
Absolutely. I love it. Is there anything else you want to add on there?
not really. I mean, I thought, really kind of the last thing I was thinking, I don't know if we need to go too deep into like exercise selection and where, I think a great place to start. What do you think on just places to start? We kind of talked about, body weight and stuff. I'm a huge fan personally of, full body to start. I think they kind of working everything just a few days a week, whether, like I said, whatever you can stick to, working full body, maybe 3 days a week, if you can stick to it at the start, is a great way to just kind of work everything, get form down for all the different muscle groups, and be able to be more consistent where, if you miss a day, you're not missing a whole muscle group and having to add that on to the next week.
That's exactly what I'd say. Yeah, the full body gives you the option to do it 1, 2, 3 times a week, depending on how you're splitting it up and like, the days that you're doing it on. But yeah, it doesn't like if you're going to do something like a bro split that's like, say, chest one day, then you move on to triceps, and it's just like one muscle group per day. Like you're kind of putting yourself in a box where it's like, all right, I have to do it, 5 or 6 days in a row, and
Yeah.
do a bunch of exercises on just that muscle group. Maybe it works for some people, but I think getting into it, I think the full body is the way to go. And then from there, either like an upper lower split. So that could be upper body, lower body, or it could be like upper body, lower body 2 times, to get 4 workouts in. I'd say those are like the top two I'd go with, especially if I'm like strapped for time and want to keep it to maybe 4 days a week at most.
Yeah. No, absolutely. Yeah, I think those are good starting points. And then when you kind of choose exercises for that, just starting really simple. Like we said with body weight, starting with those simple body weight exercises, the squats, the lunges, the push-ups, the pull-ups, stuff like that. That's going to be a great setup for your base. And then really as you work into more weights, really focusing on those compound movements, the bench press, the squats, the the lunges, the shoulder press, those kind of things that are going to work a bunch of different muscles. And I think you'll find that you'll set yourself up with a really solid base, and you'll see a lot greater results going forward.
Yeah. I think we can leave it at that. To be honest, I think that's the best way to go. And then in terms of exercise choices, which we kind of he kind of just touched on that actually. But yeah, again, like we've talked about, things that you enjoy compound is going to be like the bigger bang for your buck. Obviously, if there's like certain muscle groups you really want to focus on, I'd throw those more of the isolation stuff for that towards the end. Again, it's like it really depends on on a lot of things, but in terms of what's going to give you the most results, and most results, I guess is the best way to put it, is having those isolation exercises towards the end.
Yeah, absolutely. And really to wrap it up, I would just say, I wrote down some good tips. I don't know if you wrote down any kind of general tips for people, but just kind of running through some of my big tips on top of this is one thing that's really helped me with consistency in my workouts is scheduling in my workouts each week to my calendar. Like I'll look at my calendar on Sunday, I'll figure out what works best for me throughout that week, and I'll put those into my calendar. And that has really helped me stick to those workouts and not just like constantly push them out. I mean, obviously, there's going to be times where you put them in your calendar and you got to adjust it just based on something coming up. But, a lot of times what I found is when I do that, I'm already looking at what is already going on and I'm able to just be so much more consistent on a daily basis. A few other ones, just having alternate exercises at the gym, especially if you're going to the gym, just having alternates for each exercise in your program for that day can be very helpful for time because depending on when you're going, there could be people at the machine or the thing you need to do. And so if you can even have one other exercise that you can do in place of that that's going to hit the same muscle groups, that's going to be huge for you. One thing I found in the past is that morning workouts can add a lot to consistency as well. Not everybody's going to be a morning workout person, but like if you, I have found for me when I was doing after work workouts or like in the afternoon, the longer it got in the day, the more exhausted, the less energy I had, and the less likely I was to get those workouts in. And so if you can get it in, even just any time in the morning when it works for you, I think that adds a lot of consistency to most people's plan.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. I know a lot of people, some people can't, but for the most part, I think most people have that ability to do it if they really wanted to. And the more I get there in the morning, I notice that the workout gets done. The other day, I didn't get there in the morning, and I just kept like slowly like pushing it back, and then I ended up not going on Monday, and I was like, "Damn, I should have just went in the morning." Um, and then the other thing I wanted to add was just having a plan. It doesn't have to be anything crazy. It doesn't have to even be from someone who like knows what they're doing or someone who's like a trainer. Like if you have your thing that works for you, just write it down. Know like what you're doing when you go into the gym so you can go there and not rely on making making choices while you're there. And sometimes maybe you'll get there in a like a piece of equipment's taken and then you want to switch to something else. Like some of that stuff will happen. Um, but not going in there and just relying on you, like being like, all right, I guess I'll do this today. Cause I've done it before and I used to do it all the time where I would just go in and I would just be like free balling it. And then just like, I don't really feel like doing that today. So I'll just I'll just sit on the bike for 20 minutes and it usually doesn't end up going well.
No, I agree. And that's kind of goes to the alternate exercises too. Like I'm honestly think it just pays so much to just have at least one in the book and that you're like, okay, I'm doing bench press. If bench press isn't available, on the barbell, you could have dumbbell bench press, like, like just kind of having simple tweaks like that, like squats. It's like, okay, if the squat rack isn't available, I'm going to do hack squats, like these small, like little tweaks that you can make to still get the workout moving. Like if you're waiting for machines all the time, or if you're locked into these one exercises, you could be adding 15, 20 minutes to your workout where you could be doing other shit. And a lot of people make the excuse of not having time in the first place. And so this is going to really just simplify your plan a lot. And I think that's kind of one of the last things I would say is just like simplify the shit out of this stuff. Like I know we threw a lot at you today, and just simplify, right? Like it doesn't have to be complicated. If you're starting today, like take 5 exercises and just try to work on them every day. Just do, even if you just do like a few sets of each of those exercises a day, or like a few days a week, like to just start working on them, start getting some movement in, start mastering that form, and just start really setting that base so that you can progress to those two resistance, two resistance bands, two machines, two weights, like whatever you have to do. Like if you're take nothing away from this, I would just say that just get going today, meet yourself where you're at, simplify, and just nail down that form from the start, and that will really set yourself up with a really good base to see amazing results in the future.
Absolutely. Just get started. That's all you got to do. It doesn't have to be perfect.
Start with one day, start with 15 minutes.
So we'll wrap it up for you guys. Thank you all for listening. Make sure you don't forget to subscribe. Hopefully we have this on YouTube soon. You guys can see some clips and watch it. Other than that, thank you guys for listening.
Thanks, guys.